the question we had from previous. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you to the second session about destination on innovative research for European cultural heritage and cultural and creative industries. And in this session, we deal with the call for proposals which will set up the cultural heritage cloud. And I should also welcome on this occasion my two colleagues who will then be the ones to answer your difficult questions. Rickard, you have already seen in the previous session, and Søren has already done the moderation for the horizontal questions earlier today. So all three of us should already be kind of known to you. Now, with this call, we deal with the digital translation in the cultural heritage sector as such. And this is marked by two main areas, namely one, the profound technological changes through digitization as far as research is concerned and preservation are concerned. And secondly, the fundamental changes as far as our behavior is concerned, not only of the consumers, but also of the cultural heritage professionals. COVID has really been a game changer in that respect. And with these two elements, we want to bring about change also in the sector. We have observed that more and more persons want to no longer visit museums only physically, but they also do this in a virtual way. They combine the two things. And this is a challenge for museums because they need to adapt their exhibitions accordingly, and they need to work to collaborate beyond the different national borders. And in addition to that, the new technologies have offered an immense set of new tools and opportunities as far as restoration and preservation is concerned. This is really a new dimension in digitization. And as I've mentioned already at our session in the morning, you might have heard of the restoration work which is going on with Notre Dame in Paris, and how important the digital analysis of this work is in order to move on with very precise restoration. And they have now reached a level of quality of restoration we would never have dreamt of before. What is going on there is an example of what we can do at the European level. And what we want to do is to extend these working methods beyond national borders and make it open to professionals from all over Europe. Now, for this, with the Cultural Heritage Cloud, we need to provide a digital platform for professionals so that they can work on highly technical and sophisticated joint projects at the same time and from all over Europe. What at first sounds rather simple, indeed is a very complex matter, because we need to set up an all-encompassing infrastructure, the platform, and equip this infrastructure with the different tools the professionals should work with. Now, the good thing is that we do not start from scratch. And we have published a report on the situation of the digitization in this field, on the needs and the opportunities for such a cloud in May. And I highly recommend you reading this report if you're interested in submitting a proposal. My colleagues told me that as of tomorrow, the link to the report will be available on the website for the Cluster 2 Info Day. And with this, I think it can already help you very much in moving on in your preparatory work. The second point is that we wanted to know more and better what are the needs, but also what are the challenges for the museum professionals. Because we've got museums which are very much engaged in sophisticated research. Others are beginners, and we want to put them all together that they can work together. And this will be what we're going to do with the cloud. And for this, we have done a survey, and also this survey on the needs and on the opportunities of the Cultural Heritage Cloud. You will also find the link to this survey report on the website of the Info Day as of tomorrow. And I just wanted to mention to you that we had more than 1,000 museum professionals who participated in this most interesting survey. And I'm now coming to an end because we only have half an hour for our questions and answer session. What needs to be done in your proposals is to build a proposal where you've got SSH sciences combined with STEM sciences. We need to go for the latest technologies and developments in the IT sector, and we need to have synergies and complementarity with what is already going on. And there, just let me mention Europeana, then the European Cultural Heritage Data Space, and EOSC, the European Open Science Cloud. So if you observe all these elements, then one can really find a good complementarity. As this is a very complex subject matter with many people involved, the duration of the call of being open is longer than for the rest of Cluster 2 because the closing date is the 21st of September. So we all hope that you will have sufficient time to prepare a sophisticated, high-performing proposal. And this then leads me to opening up the floor for questions, and Søren, Rickard and myself will try to give you answers to the questions you may have. Thank you. Well, I see for the moment no questions, which means that either we have been so clear in what we have set out in our topics, or that we have been so confusing that you don't know where to start from, which I, of course, believe is not the case. So, now, as for the moment, I don't see any specific questions. Now, could I ask you, Søren, are there specific elements from your experience, because you have been working with such big technical projects for quite some time, that from your experience you could mention one or the other hint for the ones who will propose something which could help them in their preparatory work?
Thank you very much. I will try. I think that there are a few specificities on this call which one should mention. And one of the first ones is that we're supposed to have like a wealth of already ongoing projects. We can see that we're building on things that have been ongoing since a number of years. And therefore, it's actually a prerequisite for the call to give an outline of previously funded projects in the proposal itself. And this is a very important thing. The second thing, which is also prerequisites for the actual proposal, is that proposal must outline a business plan. And this is something that you are not really used to in this field, but we've used it for many years in the industrial technology domain. Where we were having virtual institutes and open innovation test beds and so on and so forth. And there it's actually really important that when you're building an infrastructure as big as this, and now there's a question coming on that mentions the 25 million euro topic, that it also lasts when the project has finished. And that's the reason that we need to have a business plan. A couple of other smaller things in this regard is that we need to see which kind of governance structure that we're putting in place. And this is actually, it's not a small thing, but it's a really important thing that the member states and we have that there are actors that are supporting this also outside the 5-year period that you just mentioned now, Harald.
I think, yeah. Sorry.
The last thing I wanted to say was that there is also, in this one, we have added the financial support for third parties, exactly so that we can include the SMEs in this call, or the smaller museums, the small actors, so that they can help not only to participate, but also that they can help to test the infrastructure that is there. This is a really important element of the overall concept of this, to be able to verify that everything is working. And that's also why the concept for the whole call is built on lump sum. Simply because that it makes sense when you're building an infrastructure to have payment when you have concluded certain steps in the proposal. And when you're building infrastructure, that is quite natural to do it like this.
So thanks very much, Søren, for this, because I think that in our cluster 2 and in our traditional way of approaching these things, we are now with this call entering new and uncharted waters. There is the first question we have received there, which is that there is a big project, 25 million, and 1 or 2 smaller RIAs, 10 million total. Do they have to be related, or the consortia should be different? Now, for each of the topics, when you submit proposals, you should form specific consortia for the specific topics. This is one point. The second point is that it is very, very important that there is a very close cooperation between the different topics. And this will even go more for the call for 2024, but we will not discuss this right now. Because with the smaller with the smaller topic, you will already provide the first tool to be put on the infrastructure. And to make sure that the tool matches the infrastructure, it is of utmost importance that the two understand each other and that they are in regular contact. That is also the reason why in all the topics on the cloud, we've specifically mentioned that there should be a close cooperation with the infrastructure and with the different tools. Now let's go for the next question. What is the relation of the cloud with the data space? What is the vision of how these two will function in practice? Let me try to say a few words first, and then my colleagues will correct me. Now, the data space is to a certain extent a framework within which we will operate. There are a few principles which have been set out, and these principles like open access, fair treating of the different participants. We have set this out, and this is in compliance with the data space, and this is how we see these things. And also, when we are preparing the different topics, we work closely together with our colleagues dealing with the data space to make sure that we have a complementarity and that we can create synergies. Are there any points you would like to add to this?
Maybe just underline or complement what you've been saying, that the vision we have is that the data space for cultural heritage and the European Collaborative Cloud for Cultural Heritage are complementary initiatives which will together help cover what the Commission wants to support in terms of the digitization of the cultural heritage sector in Europe. So the relation between them should be one of, they should be interconnected, they should be aware of each other, and they should cooperate wherever that makes sense for the two initiatives.
Yeah, and then I've also seen on the screen there was again the question for the deadline. I've mentioned the 21st of September, and Søren is nodding, so the deadline for this call is 21st of September.
Indeed.
Next question, do you expect the winning consortium to include all member states as participants, or is it sufficient if the proposal covers all areas of Europe? The bigger the consortium is, the better it is, because of course we want to have an impact on the entirety of Europe, but which does not mean necessarily that all member states have to be present. I could also imagine that later on the ones who in the beginning don't know yet how to deal with this in the beginning can join in later. We should also provide for such an opportunity. Next question. And please, Richard, and
Perhaps I would like to say,
yes,
in addition to what you just said, Harald, is that it should be supported by the member states, but that does not necessarily mean that all the member states are direct participants in the project.
Yeah.
So I think that's the important difference in this game, that they are really supported by the member states. And of course, we would like to have it, as you also said, that it covers all of Europe, but it does not necessarily mean that everything has to be in the proposal itself. The governance structure afterwards has to support this, and as broad as if it can be as broad as possible, that's also good. But of course, there is a limit to how big you can run the consortium in a project like this.
True.
Because that also gives administrative hindrance for this.
Absolutely. And this already, now we come to the next question, which I'll read out now. Shall we use existing infrastructures for the cloud, or is an industrial partner needed in the consortium to build a new cloud? How would you explain this best? Yes, Richard, please.
I would say that the idea is that we build on existing infrastructures to the extent that this is possible and feasible for logical, let's say, for the what we want to achieve. So we don't foresee an industrial partner to establish a new cloud. In fact, there is a recommendation not to spend significant amounts of funding on commercial hardware or software. And this question, I suppose that this question refers to what was previously called the big project. Number one topic.
Søren.
But perhaps just to also to add to this, I think that it would be nice to see that there would be an industrial partner that could take part in this, to actually extend this also on the commercial market, because we are depending, or this topic is depending in its survival later on, to have a relatively large market for the data. So it would be nice, but it's not a prerequisite.
Thank you. Now I move to the next question. Will the cloud include tools addressed only to museum professionals? Would there be interest for archives, libraries, and other types of heritage professionals? It is not limited to museum professionals. Archives, libraries, and all other types of heritage professionals are most welcome, because it should be for cultural heritage professionals and museum professionals. Sometimes, as this is a wrong term, we reduce it maybe to museum professionals, but please, it is open to a much wider spectrum. It's the entire spectrum of cultural heritage professionals and researchers. Next question. Are the operation of data spaces expected from the projects apart from existing data spaces you mentioned, or the existing data space should be complemented? Who of you would like to take this question? Richard, would you give it?
There's a risk that I may not fully answer to the question, but as we said before, the projects are expected to build on what exists to the extent that this is possible, but the consortia developed should also, of course, make sure that this functions as one structure and is coordinated. So depending what you are reading into operation of a data space, the answer could be yes or no.
I think the important part here is complementary.
Yep.
Okay.
Then the next question is, museums primarily depend on tech solutions provided by private companies. Will the cloud serve as a marketplace for tech providers? I think part of the answer has already been given in one of the previous things. That is to say, we try to rely on what already exists on the market so that one does not invent new things. And the tool, well, normally the tools we put on the cloud should be the tools the museum professionals and the cultural heritage professionals should be able to work with. Now, if there should be a marketplace for the tech providers, I'm turning to my colleagues. If there is a specific idea about that, I see that Søren is very confident with this because he has been dealing with such things already in different contexts.
Yeah, I think that the experience that we have in using this tool from the past is that there will be a component of marketplace in such a structure. It does not necessarily have to be there, but it means that people that come in also even with commercial software may be able to showcase their things inside the cloud and thereby get customers from the museums, but it's not the intention to do this. I think that, as Harald says, the intention is to build on the existing things and then to put a frame onto all these topics or onto these applications. And this is also something that is going to be continued in 2024 when we have the additional calls for specific applications inside the clouds.
Thank you. Then how is the data space and the cloud complementary? Is this specified or up to the proposers to define this? We have kept it open as far as the specifications are concerned, also for the very simple reason that in parallel with what we have now produced for the cloud as a call, there have been calls going on for the European data space, and of course we don't know yet exactly what the outcome of this is, but that is exactly the reason why we have put into the topic that the ones proposing their projects should regularly check what is going on, in particular with the data space, and in their proposal establish bridges and links how they can work together. And are you aware of key players already in charge of the topic itself whom you could contact? I myself cannot give you such an information, but there is also this matchmaking events. And Søren, when is the one for cluster 2?
I honestly cannot recall, Harald, but I think that in general with these kind of things, we are not going to give you solutions or the proposers solutions for how to do this. It's up to the proposers to do this. And then to sell their proposal to the experts that are going to evaluate this.
Okay. And there are many types of cultural heritage objects in museums. Do we have to manage all of them, or is it possible to focus on some of them for RIA projects? Well, as far as the cloud infrastructure is concerned, the first topic, the 0101, it should cover all. It should be open to all, because the idea would be that we would have one reference platform from which you operate. And this makes also this topic and this proposal quite complex. But the idea would be that the different elements which will be proposed, that one can build bridges and link them up with others, so it should be open to all. We don't want to restrict it. So the thank you very much. We've just received an information about the matchmaking. The matchmaking event will take place tomorrow. I go to the next question. This is, the cloud infrastructure is a big project, 25 million, and artificial intelligence by its type, and only one proposal will be selected for funding. What the majority of funds is expected to be used for? This is up to you in your proposal, that on the one hand, you establish an infrastructure which makes sense, where the evaluators can see that it accommodates all types of cultural heritage and all types museum, research, archives. And secondly, that also you provide the necessary funding for each of the sub-elements, and that you can also explain why. This will be the quality of the project submitted. For us, we do not have any, we do not impose on you that part so and so much must be used for this and that. And I now go to the last question, because we are close to the end of our session. Yeah, the aim, the report survey recommends funding from other programs. When will there be calls in the other programs, and how do they connect to this call? Well, there is one thing. We try to create synergies as a general principle in different areas. Let me just give you the question of training. There might be, we will have some elements in our topics where training will be funded through the Cultural Heritage Cloud, but there is also some other kinds of training which might be maybe more basic or on one specific area, which might come from Creative Europe or from other, from Digital Europe. And if we can then combine these fundings, then it really makes sense. And I think that would even give the cloud much more impact if we can combine these things. And there you have to look into the different calls for proposals, be it Creative Europe just as one element, or be it Digital Europe. And that there are elements where you can really see that this could complement what we're going to do with the cloud. And of course, this is the first call for the cloud, and we will then, in the years to come, in particular for 24 and 25, a considerable number of topics where we will propose tools to be developed for the cooperation of the museum professionals. So this will be the big challenges for our team now, to develop these calls for the next year and the year after. Now, given the time, I suggest now that we have now come to an end of this presentation. I see that although we had a difficult start with the first questions, but now they are coming in more and more questions, and thanks very much that you have jumped on this. We will try to provide answers in writing on the website, so that the ones we have not answered now at this session, you can then read it in the next few days. And just let me recall, please also, as of tomorrow, you will have the link to the cloud expert report on what should be developed as far as infrastructure and tools are concerned, and then the needs and expectations of the users, the museum professionals, because the cloud is mainly made for the cultural heritage professionals. With this, I thank you very much for your interest. Thank you also for your sophisticated questions, and we very much look forward to the proposals to come in. I recall that the deadline for this call is the 21st of September, and the matchmaking to find partners will take place tomorrow. Thank you very much.